Oh, you're not fooling around, are you? Just right to it. How do I feel about saying goodbye? I have incredibly mixed emotions, which I'm sure is the most cliched thing I could say at this point, but it's true.
After 5 years, I am definitely ready to move on from Ted. I have been through a lot with him, and I love him to death, but he's exhausting.
I'm happy to say goodbye to Michael's hair. I'm happy to say goodbye to Michael's problems.
I hate saying goodbye, actually. I mean, we couldn't believe we were making the show in the first place, to be honest. So 5 years is amazing.
It feels like it's time to move on to whatever's next in the world and in life. And on the other hand, it's sad. It's sad.
I'm just sort of anticipating how I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Like, what am I going to say to people on our final day of shooting? What's there to say? There's so much to say, yet what can you say?
This group of people came into my life for a definite purpose, and I'll love them forever.
It's going to be very tough. I'm getting speechless about it.
I want to enjoy every minute now.
I'm thrilled that I got to be part of it before it goes away.
I wish we could stay.
It'll be fine for me eventually.
Anything that has genuine impact should have a definite shelf life and shouldn't drag on and get watered down.
I'm glad we're going out when we all still love it and can feel good about it.
We've all worked really hard, and I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
It's been said that an ending is also a beginning. As the Queer as Folk series finale looms, it is only appropriate to look at what the series has accomplished, the doors it has opened that can truly never be closed.
Queer as Folk was the very, very first ever television show to deal with the gay community on a serious level.
This show invited all of us in and said, and not only do you deserve a place at the table, but you got the whole restaurant.
There was a time when African-American programming didn't exist, and it's far from the case now.
Queer as Folk has definitely opened the door for more honest portrayals of gay people.
Queer as Folk has given some weight to the gay characters on television. You know, before they were fluffy, pull-in Hollywood Squares type of characters, foppish, asexual, kind of silly characters, and never even spoken of as gay, really. You know, they never actually went through with anything. They just kind of,
I used to look to, and I'm not kidding, I used to look to Ricky Lake for gay images in the media. That was as good as it got. Those hopped up club kids, who are all, I'm gay, okay.
Whereas, now there's some anchoring to it.
When we first began, we needed posters and the billboards, the print ads, and a lot of things were experimented with. But what the network found was the most effective, which is the words queer as folk on a black field. That word queer, people were intrigued by it, people were frightened by it.
The only reason I think they could call Queer Eye for the Straight Guy Queer Eye for the Straight Guy is because Queer as Folk existed. That word was so taboo until it was in our title.
When there's been a lot of suppression in a certain area, you have to bust through it. You can't go gently into that night.
Queer as Folk has depicted these characters in explicit ways and real ways.
I hope that we will be remembered as the first people who dared to give gay people sex lives. We were able to be full, complicated, screwed up, sexual people.
And I think now, because of us, you have the L word, and and hopefully after that, then you will have gay characters that are sexualized and humanized that go off into all different sorts of TV shows, and it's just part of the fabric, which is what it should be.
I hope that we have left our thumbprint on the negative, I hope that people will think of time before Queer as Folk and time after Queer as Folk.
In the last few months, Logo and Here, two networks devoted solely to gay programming, have emerged. But when Queer as Folk began in 1999 as a controversial British miniseries, it really was the first of its kind. Its frank approach to same-sex sex caused a splash large enough to ripple across the Atlantic. But on American shores, such candid explorations of gay life were hardly welcome.
Frankly, we're talking about the bottom line here. We're talking about, does it make sense? It's a business decision to finance a television series from the gay perspective. I think that's probably what this show has done the most to influence.
We read an article in the LA Times about the British Queer as Folk, and it said, the best show you'll never see on American television.
I looked at the British show and almost had heart failure.
It was very, very graphic in nature, language, sexuality.
It was so cheeky, it was so out there.
And there was a rumor going around that Showtime was interested in doing this show.
So we said, well, would you consider us? We'd like to, volunteer for the suicide mission.
But there has to be a condition, and the condition is it can't be a watered-down version of Queer as Folk.
There's no point doing this.
And they absolutely agreed with us.
Long before Queer as Folk started shooting, it was described as controversial and revolutionary. Long before the media asked, is America ready? The producers wondered, where is everybody?
Casting, that was a very interesting process.
And so, the ride began.
I walked into my first audition, I was like, are we doing this? Because this is crazy, y'all.
I got bored. I know, getting your dick sucked can be so tedious.
The energy of that first script I read was unlike anything I had read before.
I was reading the love scenes going, I can't believe they're going to do this.
This is off the his hook. I didn't say that because we didn't say that back then. It's tired now, but it wasn't even invented then, so it's amazing what happens in 5 years.
I first got involved in the show because I knew it would be historic, and it was necessary. If we didn't dive in and do it, who would?
Peter Page had been asked to audition for the part of Ted, and all his friends said, oh no, you don't want to play that part. I wish I had a friend who had said that to me. No.
Scott was not our physical image of Ted, but he just had a quality that was absolutely right. The next person to walk in was Peter Page.
Peter came in for the part of Ted.
And the minute he opened his mouth...
Magic doesn't happen by magic,
We said, no, this isn't right, but you would be perfect for Emma.
Easy, boys. There's more than enough for me to go around for everyone.
So everything was sort of coming together.
But finding Brian and Justin proved to be very difficult.
People were very afraid of these characters.
Play gay in Hollywood?
Now why would I want to do that?
They knew they could suffer as actors for doing this.
And a lot of the agencies wouldn't send us people.
Then I think it pushed the beginning of production back several months.
Linda would say to us, you're seeing 3 people today. And I'd say, 3 people? That's all. Well, you were supposed to see 20, but they all canceled.
Amidst the setbacks, one person so firmly believed in the series, she paid for her own trip to audition in Toronto. Sharon Gless arrived just in time to galvanize low spirits.
When I read the script, I went, oh, all right. I went into the producers and said, are you going to shoot this? They said every frame. I said, I want to be in on this one.
And she said, fuck everyone who doesn't want to be a part of it, and they'll be really sorry. And she was just instrumental in getting our energies up, being a cheerleader for the show.
How about a nice big thank you?
This was one of my first auditions when I got to the city.
And then we landed on Randy Harrison, who looked like he was 10.
How old are you really?
20, 19, 18.
Well, what is this, a missile launch?
17. I had a lot of reactions to it, but I definitely thought, wow.
He scared us all, because maybe he's too young.
How's it going?
But he should scare us a little bit.
I just saw the face of God. His name is Brian Kinney.
Gil Harold reads the scene, and afterwards he lit up a cigarette. He was so Brian-esque. I was just blown away. I had faith in him from the beginning, and I knew that he could do it.
The examination of sex, drugs, deviant behavior, all those things were interesting to me because of their potentially, transformative power.
They were incredibly brave, incredibly courageous.
You guys got balls. You need another half of them.
I'm in awe of all of them.
The show finally debuted in December of 1999 to a firestorm of criticism.
It's going to make an impact.
And no apologies.
Queer as Folk is a go.
Attacks on the show came in from the right. Mike Haley, a spokesperson for the conservative watchdog group Focus on the Family, claimed the show did a disservice to our youth and culture.
They were prepared for bomb threats, when we first went on there. They gave us security briefings, and it was all, oh dear,
The only disappointment I have is that we were trying to elect a president in Florida 5 years ago, that embarrassing moment in American history. And there was so much mayhem going on there that nobody even noticed that we premiered. So we kind of missed all that horror that we were expecting.
Surprisingly, criticism also came from within the gay community.
The one misconception about the show that's really annoyed me, and it probably is my fault, is that it's all about sex, considering my character said it in the very first episode.
The thing you need to know is, it's all about sex.
We were showing characters, gay characters, who were not portrayed as they'd ever been portrayed before.
And some people are offended, oh, it's too sexual, it's too sexual. Turn on All My Children. I think Susan Lucci's been married 11 times.
We wanted them to be three-dimensional and to express themselves sexually.
By making sex such a seminal part of the show, it's caused us to be fully represented.
It's about gay people and their lives, including their sex lives.
I'd rather get laid.
A lot of people in the gay community didn't want to see this reflection of themselves.
If you don't like the reflection, don't blame it on the mirror.
Queer as Folk was always to us a celebration of gay life, warts and all.
And nothing else, the repetitiveness of the sex of the show has to make it, just bland eventually. So I hope that it has. I really do. I think that's something significant.
It matured over time to the extent that people didn't want to identify with drugs and sex as a part of our culture, which it is, and they are. It started to represent relationships a lot more and family a lot more.
People showed up to see something sort of titillating and something they hadn't seen before, and oh, I hear there's hot guys on there getting naked, But they stayed because of the relationships. They came for the queer, but they stayed for the folk.
If you think it's all about promiscuity and sex, then you're only paying attention to about 20% of the storylines. And that's annoying.
If you don't like the character, it's a stereotype. If you do like the character, it's an archetype. So, but don't tell me these people don't exist. I've known these characters all my life.
Queer as Folk remained unapologetic about its full frontal assault on TV barriers. Sex was indeed a big part of the show's identity, but Queer as Folk also never turned a blind eye to issues facing the gay community. San Francisco's mayor may have started the deluge of gay marriages that quickly turned into a national debate, but the series was ahead of the curve.
Every minority has fought for their rights. If little old ladies at the turn of the century can get out there in the streets and fought for the right to vote, what's your problem?
Everybody made a big deal about the Ben and Michael storyline of getting married in Canada, but the girls had gotten married a year before. We've been handling that issue a lot longer than it's been on the plate.
Their husband and husband.
Who's he?
Our son.
How you define a family in this country, it's changing. And we have to accept and embrace families as they present themselves.
You two make a beautiful couple.
The show's dealing with what's on our news screens right now. The whole exploration of this proposition, mimicking an actual proposition in the States, which seeks to roll back rights that have been won on behalf of gays and lesbians.
An entire election was just won based on that issue, in my mind. Sneaking initiatives onto ballots to then get out the conservative vote, I think is what tipped the scales.
To get people who watch it to start a conversation about things that have been touched on in the show is kind of the job of a show.
Ultimately, I think people will have more respect for you if you're just honest about yourself than if you try and hide or lie, which we're not going to do. AIDS is epidemic. It's a big problem.
Never let anyone fuck you without a condom.
There's barebacking everywhere. There is crystal meth use everywhere.
You want to be beautiful?
The crystal meth stuff and the final episode of that year for me was tough, and so I'll always remember working on that.
I just am watching my entire peer group get, absolutely destroyed by this drug, and so I'm really, really glad that we wandered into that maze. Scott and I, who are, very, very close friends, could barely look at each other some days, and it was really difficult to be around this person that you loved so much who was treating you like shit for, 14 hours a day.
You'll always be a piece of trash from Hazelhurst, Mississippi. But at least I am not a tweaked out, fucked out Crystal Queen. Get the fuck out!
One of the more interesting moments for us in terms of the types of stories that we tell and the reactions we get to them was when the character of Michael starts seeing Ben, who's HIV positive.
I'd say he's perfect except for one thing. He's positive.
And his mother, Debbie, who is not judgmental, unconditionally loving in that scene, she said, okay, you always wanted a normal mother?
Okay, you got one. I don't want you dating that guy.
I don't care what you want!
And people went nuts over this. Well, that's all politics. What we did was just create a story about human nature.
So it was interesting to do that through the most accepting person on the show.
For the first time in my life, I wish my son wasn't gay.
The episodes with Michael coming to terms with having sex with Ben when he has HIV really threw the audience for a loop. We got a lot of hate mail because Michael wouldn't do it right away. And I think the healthiest thing is when you play out a storyline as real as possible and then let the audience have whatever reaction they will have.
Brian's father's death, I think, is one of the best episodes we've ever done. There's that image at the very end when Gail takes his father's bowling ball and bowls it down the street into the fog, and he just stands there with his arms up just like, I'm finally fucking free.
So long, Jack.
It's just a masterpiece of acting and directing. Gail told me to say something nice. There you have it, Gail Harold.
Sharon and Jack, the scene in Debbie's house where she tells him to fuck off, basically.
You used me! And you used me. I think you better leave. And don't bother coming back until you say you're sorry.
Don't you worry, because I'm never coming back. You want an apology? Here's my apology. Fuck you, little brother. Fuck you.
It was so simple and straightforward and heavy, like really heavy, without any lights, no music, no drugs, no sex.
It was a horrible, painful scene, but it was wonderful to play.
It's one of the most powerful things I've seen on the show.
I like getting down and dirty. What the hell is that supposed to mean?
My favorite single scene is the scene where...
I wish we could do it right now.
Why not? Emmett and George sneak into the bathroom in the airplane and for a little mile-high rendezvous. And George has a heart attack and dies.
You all right, George? George?
I really love it because it starts off sort of romantic, and then it turns kind of naughty and sexy, and then it turns kind of funny, and then it just turns horrifying and heartbreaking.
Somebody help us, please!
I think it's the kind of thing you'll never, ever see anywhere else. It's sort of uniquely Queer as Folk.
Fags deserve to die! Fuck you!
I think it's interesting that we're going off the air now that all these issues are out there, and it's like, okay, government, people, figure it out.
Whether inspiring dissent or applause, the show has always provoked fervent reactions, but the voices of its fans have remained the loudest, echoed on dozens of websites, at international conventions, and in many moving letters.
We did a show for a gay audience, but everyone was shocked, including us, that the huge big gobs of straight audience was coming to us and watching the show.
We get a lot of mail from straight women who love the show, who speak about the fact that it was never part of their lives before, and how accepting and happy they are that they have a new perspective.
When you go out with these kids and we do these premieres and public appearances for them, the people go bonkers. I mean, bonkers.
For me, that was shocking, and it was very hard to process.
We get responses and letters all the time from individual people who have been personally affected, and that's what matters.
There's so many gay people in the country who don't have much connection to a larger world. I think it's very important for them.
I knew that it was going to have the potential to reach middle America.
For me, it's been the sadder circumstances that have made me aware of the impact of the show.
The first season started airing, and I got a letter from a kid in Nebraska. He was the only gay person he knew, and he saw our show, and he felt like he belonged to something for the first time in his life.
The first time it hit me, it was the first season. We shot 3 days straight, and I was in like every scene. I remember by the third day, I was just like going a little crazy, and I went back into my dressing room, and there was a letter there. And out fell this little picture of this little boy named Brady. At the very end of the letter, she said, the bottom line is you're making this country a better place for my child, and I thank you for that. And it just stopped me. And I just let go of all the things that were going wrong that day, and I thought, oh God, I'm doing something good here.
The National Mental Health Association reports that lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered youth are 3 times more likely to attempt suicide than their heterosexual peers. Much of that has to do with feeling unaccepted and alone. Many people have seen Queer as Folk as a beacon of light, a representation of a part of themselves on an otherwise bare landscape.
I'm proud of you, Justin.
Proud of you too, Mom.
The character of Justin had an extraordinary impact on young gay people in America.
I'm doing what I have to do for me. Justin gave them strength to come out to their friends and their parents, and you know, it affects a lot of people. It really did.
One boy came up and asked if I would hold him. I said, sure. And I gave him a hug, and he started sobbing. And he sobbed, and he sobbed, and he sobbed, and I just said, I'm just going to hold him till this stops. There's a lot of people there. And all I could think of was the damage that's been done to this boy. That he relates so much to Debbie. and so much wants this love.
There was a woman in Alaska who donated money to charity on behalf of every single one of us.
And she said, I want to donate $1,000 to each of the cast members' favorite charity. And she said, because of you and watching the show, I now have a relationship with my son that I didn't have for 10 years.
It's been an important bonding tool for their relationship, and she has such, affection for us and for the characters.
It blows me away.
One thing that will stay with me forever about working on this show, the faces of the 15-year-old boys who stop me on the street and say, "You're my hero," And I don't think I'm anybody's hero, but to be part of something that means so much to so many people, that would have meant so much to me, that's what I'll take to my deathbed.
People are having to deal with us. They're having to talk about us. It's caused us not to be the love that dare not speak its name. And that's incredibly healing. Incredibly healing.
The creators and cast of Queer as Folk have been rewarded not only by knowing that they've touched lives, but by knowing they've shared something very special together.
We have more of a relationship than just being an actor on the set. We all moved up here to a new town, a new country. We all came here together. We took each other shopping for furniture. We were here together during 9/11. I mean, we all banded in one person's apartment,
As an actor for 12 years, what I always said that I most wanted to find was a family. Then Queer as Folk happened, and I felt that.
Everyone's put so much of their time and energy and love and dedicated a big part of their lives to this show.
And every single member of our crew who we beat down with snow and rain and 18-hour days, and they come back year after year for more, I guess kind of speaks something.
I mean, we're together all the time, and just the makeup trailer, that's where my day begins for me, and that's my safe place.
I've absolutely loved doing the show. I've loved everyone that I'm working with. There are moments when it has really been great all across the board.
There are some really cool people in the world, and I've worked with them, so.
From Rosie and Cyndi Lauper, who come and say they've never been on a set like this before.
I went home and I was so excited. I said to Kelly, God, maybe I would think about doing a series. It's so fun. I loved it. Honestly, I'm going to get verklempt. But she's like, just remember, you only did 2 days, and then you went home and you slept for 14 hours.
I will say this. This season there's a lot funnier outtakes. There's been a lot of hijinks this year.
A baby needs to be with its sick mother. What?
Practically every guy at the state. Oh, Peter Page, come on. Your ass is hanging out.
First time I ever had to slap Hal Sparks. I couldn't do it. I absolutely couldn't do it. Hal had to teach me how to do it. He said, "You're such a wuss. Come on, haul off and hit me. I can take it." And now I've sort of gotten into it. I mean, now we do gag reels of me, bam, bam, bam.
Just smack me. Good. Okay, Mary. Have you ever seen a scene so fucked up in all your life? No. It was so beautifully written, too.
The periods where we are a little looser are just as important as the periods where we're deeply focused on what we're doing.
We're all just like silly and strange, and we get together and we, have poker parties over at Sharon's house.
I started a monthly cast poker party this year. Oh, and we're going to try and sort of keep it going. Not every month, we're going to try and keep it going.
We've been through something really incredible together. We are bound together forever, I think, in our own minds, our own lives, and in other people's as well. And I'm grateful for that.
Sweat makes a great cement. Well, these kids and I have sweated together for 5 years, and I believe that we will stay in touch. They are my family now.
3 little words, Queer as Folk. Who knew that an old English expression originally meaning there's nothing stranger than people would come to mean so much more?
That means 5 years of a glorious run with fabulous actors. That's what Queer as Folk means to me.
Now I think it means to me that we're all the same when you get down underneath it. And it's so foolish that we're all battling each other so often over things like sexual orientation or religion or what have you.
And since God is love and God doesn't make mistakes, then you must be exactly the way he wants you to be. And that goes for every person and every faggot.
I've learned what people go through on a very serious level, being on the other end of prejudice and how much that can hurt. I will never understand what it's truly like to be a gay person, and I feel privileged that I've kind of been allowed into this world.
I can't tell you how proud I am to have been a part of this show. I came out publicly while on this show, and in large part as a result of playing Ben and telling the stories that we were telling. There was no way I could stay in the closet professionally. There's no doubt it changed my life.
I came in with the desire to actually make a difference, and I hope that I have.
I don't think that I could ever look back and not take pride in the amount of work that was accomplished.
Having a show is like having the biggest toy in the world. It's a great joy.
I wouldn't trade in this experience for anything. This 5 years living here, it's unbelievable.
I savored every minute of it.
I had to kind of lay so much bare to do this show that I feel a lot more open as a person now. It's made me a better heterosexual, and it's made me a better man, I think.
I am much more confident about myself. This show's been all about being who you are, being proud of your sexuality. I'm so much more comfortable with myself.
I think the thing that the show has given me more than any other is it has allowed me to move through the world as a person who feels he belongs. And I didn't feel that way before.
It exploded through the closet doors, making Defiance an anthem. That song became a wave of change, transforming television and touching lives. Some knew they were building something powerful, but no one expected to build something more, a legacy. The show that dared deserves so much more than a cliche, but it's true. All good things must come to an end, and the time has finally come for saying goodbye.
Well, Queer as Folk, I guess this is it.
Well, what can I say? I'm getting all nervous and shaky.
Thanks for making me believe again in people. So
I love you all, and I thank you for everything, and thank you.